Today I'm going to go against one of the rules that I usually go by, which is I answer the questions that are asked to me on my Facebook page in the language they were posted in. Today's question was sent in by Chiara, so thanks to your question. And the question is, what should I do if there's no native speakers in my area, but I need to practice speaking the language? I've tried talking to myself, but I really don't know when I'm speaking correctly or not. And that's a good question. The reason why I'm answering this in English is because I'm going to talk about my experience learning German, and I think it's a little bit weird to talk about that in German, and also I think it'll just be a whole lot quicker if I just make this video in English for once, with German subtitles. But yeah, so what I experienced when I was learning German was that there were no native speakers in my area. They didn't teach German at my school. I did not know any German Americans that I could talk to, and I met a handful of people on the internet when I started being a fan of Tokyo Hotel, and when I was first started making YouTube videos, where I met a handful of people, like I said, who I would talk with occasionally. We would instant message each other, and sometimes we would Skype, but it was such a minimal amount of communication in German for me to actually consider that like intensive speaking practice to any measurable degree. It was basically just me and my books and all of my films, music, other German learning materials that I had. For at least the first year. The second year I was learning German, I did become really good friends with a native speaker who was studying abroad in my town, and we predominantly spoke in English, but when we had the chance we would also talk in German, and we would watch films together, and I would also talk to them about all of my questions. So even though I then did know a native speaker, they wanted to practice their English, they were in the States, they knew way more English than I knew German at the time, so we would just, you know, I basically just had a native speaker. I would consult about grammar questions and if I didn't understand a song or a film. But other than that, we didn't really make small talk in German for the most part. Sorry for my cat. He's not wanting me to film this video. But so generally, it was a very minimal amount of actual speaking practice that I had with native speakers before I went to Germany for the first time after 2 years of learning German. And as I said in another video, when I first got to Germany, it took about 1 to 3 days, but all of the sudden I just realized I could speak fluently in German. Even though my grammar wasn't perfect back then, and it still isn't perfect, I was just talking the whole time. I was able to answer on point when someone would ask me a question. Usually what I had to contribute to a conversation matched the topic, which those for me were the more important than grammar at the time. I just didn't want someone to ask me, what do you think of the meal? And me to be like, I did enjoy that film, thank you very much. That was my, you know, things I didn't want to happen when I was actually speaking in a conversation, more so than, oh, they won't understand me because my grammar's shitty. Even though when I was speaking, I did try to make sure my grammar wasn't ultra shitty, and I would, specifically back then, I don't do this anymore, but I would think of the cases charts in my mind for prepositions. So if I knew that I was going to ask if we could go to the city, I would, like, or if we could walk through the city, I would say, like, bist durchgegangen ohne Okay, accusative. Können wir in die Stadt laufen? Nein. Können wir durch die Stadt laufen? Durch der Stadt. And, you know, such a thing. I would think that to myself, but that was just a side little tangent. But I realized that a lot of people do predominantly want to speak in a foreign language. Back then when I was learning, I really was more interested in reading and understanding Tokyo Hotel than other things. So it kind of just happened after all of my language practices that I did synthesize together when I was in Germany that I could actually speak in German. But I did speak to myself. I spoke to myself a lot. That was one of the main practices I did for my speaking skills. I would stand in front of the mirror and I would ask myself questions like, was würdest du tun, wenn du in Deutschland wärst? Except I would ask them with a completely different pronunciation than I have now. And I would try to answer the question that I would ask myself in as many ways as possible. Because even if you don't know that your grammar is correct or not, when you're speaking in a foreign language to yourself, you're practicing a whole bunch of other really useful things that will come in handy and better your speaking skills just by talking to yourself. One of the things is that you learn to speak spontaneously rather than thinking the entire time you're talking about what it is you're going to say and planning everything. Because as I've learned, if you try to plan word for word what you're going to say, and don't write it, don't write it down like it's in a speech, but you're trying to basically quote what it is you just thought in your mind during a conversation in a foreign language, you will mess up more, from my experience. Because what you're doing then is you're not speaking spontaneously, you're trying to recall something that you constructed in your mind that then you're more worried about repeating it verbatim than actually getting just the message across that you want to get across. And coming from a perfectionist, that is really annoying and really gets in the way of speaking spontaneously, which is why I would recommend trying to stay away from planning word for word what you want to say in a language and trying to repeat that. But so on the one hand, you learn to speak spontaneously. On the other hand, you can practice with no strings attached. So I know for me, I was more interested in just getting my point across than worrying about the grammar. And that's why with all of the repetition that I did, I would be able to, specifically when I was in Germany, I would be able to talk to a native speaker, and if they didn't understand me, I didn't think initially, oh no, that's because my cat is in the room again, sorry. I didn't think to myself, oh, that's because my language skills are shitty, no one's ever gonna understand me. I just thought to myself, okay, well, what's a different way that I can say that? And I think that's a very healthy question to ask yourself rather than, to shame yourself for not speaking perfectly to a native speaker or with other speakers of the whatever language it is. And there were some other things that I did besides talking to myself that I would definitely say helped out with my speaking skills. The one was studying grammar, because when you've read a lot of texts and things in a foreign language, or the grammar, you can start realizing when it is you're making mistakes. So I'll say a sentence in German sometimes and I'll think to myself, well, wait a minute, have I heard anybody really phrase it that way? And maybe you can phrase it that way technically, like grammatically speaking, but it's just no one would say it that way. I'll notice that, because aside from working with grammar so much, I would also watch a lot of German films, listen to a lot of music, like I say a lot meaning a ton, and memorize it. So that when I was memorizing it, I would just be able to pick and choose certain sentences, and I could slip them into my conversation quite fluidly, which was really awesome. So, someone would say, oh, I've been having such a terrible day, and I would just be like, alles wird gut. That's a title of a Bushido song, but it fits into the sentence, and it fits into what's happening. So, and it's grammatically correct. So, not only, memorizing a whole bunch of things that native speakers have said, because then you have that in your mind. Because one thing that happens when you memorize a lot of words and phrases is something I like to call the dictionary in your brain. And it doesn't have to be just a word dictionary, it can be also a phrase dictionary. Where I'll tell the best example of this is I'd heard a song previously from Kusavash. And in the song he says, ich bin kein Spaßverderber. And I didn't know what verderben meant, but I knew what Spaß meant, and I could kind of figure out in context. I was like, oh, it sounds like a killjoy. Like, that sounds like the English word. Well, then later on, I was reading a text in my Germanistic class, and the word verderben came up, and I was like, where do I know this word from again? Oh wait, Spaßverderber, killjoy, to kill or destroy, something along those lines. And then in context, I could also figure that out. So even though this seems like it's on a tangent and going off more into is your word choice correct when you're speaking in a foreign language, learning a lot of things that native speakers say, when you're saying at least a word correctly in a sentence. From the pronunciation, from memorizing it like that, from knowing different definitions of the same word and being able to put it into different spots in a sentence to mean different things, that is definitely a thing that you should be able to do. If you've learned a lot of different ways of formatting things. This cat. But I know there's a whole bunch of resources on the internet for you to actually talk with native speakers or talk with other speakers nowadays. Back in the day, that really wasn't a thing that I utilized very much. But you can look for a tutor who can help you with your speaking skills or whatever other skills you want to work on specifically. I myself happen to be a tutor, and I tutor for English and German, so if you're looking for tutoring, just let me know, because I need cash, because I want to go to Germany as soon as possible, and I can't do that without cash. Also, I enjoy tutoring, and I'm very thorough when it comes to tutoring, and I have experience. All wins. You can get a tutor. You can talk to people at your university who are either students of English or German or whatever language you want to learn, and if you're not at a university, you know, maybe you know someone who speaks that language even as a foreign language that might be able to help you out, that you could speak with. You can go onto language learning forums, whether they're on Facebook or there's a huge community on Tumblr for language learners, and I think some people exchange emails and do pen pally stuff. You'll see a lot of things that are reblogged on Tumblr, like, you know, please send me a PM if you're a native speaker of this language and you're looking for someone to help you with one of these languages, because we can just mutually agree to help each other out. That is something I would recommend. You know, obviously pay attention. There can still be creeps on the internet, even though I'm an internet person and I generally think that internet people are some of the best people in the world. But you know, find people on Tumblr, find people on Facebook, find people on other language learning polyglot communities from other places. If you have any of those that you're on and you think are totally awesome and would definitely recommend, write them in the description box. And then I can make a master post and just put it out there for all of you guys. Other than that, you can try to put yourself in a situation where you will be able to speak the language. There's a whole bunch of different study abroad programs, au pair programs, internships that you can do abroad, language courses you can do abroad that, you know, they start at a beginning level, they go all the way up to extremely advanced. And if you have the opportunity, you can also apply for a scholarship to some of those, which I would recommend doing. I got a scholarship several years ago to go to Germany and just learn German literature for a summer. So that's cool. But you have to look for those kind of opportunities and actually apply to them, which I'm trying to do now for some other stuff, for language learning stuff for the summer. But really, you need to get out there and look for situations that you can put yourself in where you will be able to speak the language. So whether that's like I said, using all of the things that you learn from the films you watch and the songs you listen to and the books you read and the grammar lessons you trudge through, whether it's putting all of that together when you're just talking to yourself in the mirror and figuring out, would somebody say that or no? Or whether you're actually going out and looking for another person that you can speak to one-on-one, it's something that you have to figure out yourself and figure out what works for you and figure out how much time you have to talk with native speakers, or whether or not you can actually get yourself to a place where people speak that language. Another thing I know is a thing, some language learners have meetups, which I've heard about some of these on Facebook. There's like polyglot communities that might be in your area where they plan polyglot meetups. So even if you're just working on a language and haven't really gotten to practice speaking it, you can go to one of these forums, or sometimes they'll meet at cafes, whatever, and just talk in a whole bunch of different languages with people that are interested in the same languages. So one of the things that I had done was, my dad goes to this Irish course and they occasionally do an Irish breakfast. So I went to his teacher's house this one time and I didn't really speak Irish, but I could understand a bunch of the things that they were talking about. And I just sat there and kind of used the Irish that I knew and was like, well, hey, this was a surprising experience that I got for today, which I otherwise wouldn't have had, because I didn't even know that people just got together for an Irish breakfast and were just like, hey, let's all just talk in Irish for 2 hours. That's cool. But you can find those types of things for a whole bunch of different languages depending on your area. And even if there's none in your area, maybe try to plan one or organize one yourself. That is a little bit of work, but something you can try to do. Or you can just write a note, post it somewhere on the internet, wherever you're most comfortable with, and just say, hey, I'm looking for a native speaker to help me out. I would recommend, if you want to do that under my videos, I know there's a bunch of people watching from a whole lot of different countries who would love to find somebody else who they can trust will be a nice person to speak with in whatever language they're learning, and hopefully a non-judgmental person who will help you learn the language rather than just criticize your language abilities at whatever stage. So yeah, I guess those are the things that I would recommend if you can't really speak to native speakers. So predominantly continue speaking to yourself. Try to find instances where you can speak with native speakers. Repeat stuff, repeat stuff, repeat stuff, to quote Bo Burnham. And all of those things will synthesize together when you finally then go to speak with native speakers. Hopefully. I mean, there's probably cases where our nerves get the better of us and we actually cannot speak in front of native speakers, but let's not think about those. Let's think about the positives. I have all of this experience, I know all of these words, I know all of these grammatical structures, and now I just have to implement them because I think you're nice and I would like to know how your day is doing, kind sir who I've met at the bookstore. For instance, it's like jumping a native speaker when you see them in public. But those are my recommendations, and I would love to hear your recommendations if you have any other ones, or if there's one in specific that just helped your language speaking skills to the utmost extent. You know, write in the description box. I'm sure everybody wants to know what is the secret to speaking fluently when you know nobody that speaks the language. I'm Maria Athena, thanks for watching, and you guys can also, as I said, you can do tutoring with me for English and German. Just send me a private message if that's what you're interested in. You can shoot me an email. And you can also support me at patreon.com/MariaAthena or through a one-time sending thing on PayPal. So I really want to go to Germany, and I'm working a lot to get there. Just got a second job, and I'm working to get there. Hopefully. Hopefully soon. Soon, soon, soon. But yeah, as for now, little update at the end of the video. I know a lot of people that speak Arabic right now, so I am learning a little bit of Arabic. Just be able to talk about everyday stuff, but it's fun. So with that language, my actual predominant focus is speaking skills, even though right now I'm really like, must learn the Arabic alphabet, which every list that I've seen for things you should do when you're learning Arabic, it's like, learn to start speaking, and then like 6 things down, it's like, then learn the alphabet, and I'm like, and the writing system, and I'm like, but writing systems are cool, and I'm nerdy, so we're gonna have to change around the direction, or the order in which we're doing all these things. But I'm gonna keep you guys updated on my Arabic studies, and also hopefully post some videos in foreign languages. This is, I know we're going off on a tangent now at the end of the video, but I want to start posting kind of videos like I did in the beginning of my German learning, but in other in other languages, so maybe in Arabic, maybe in Greek or Irish or Danish or Dutch. Oh my gosh, the list is just endless. I like languages. You know, just maybe minute-long updates every couple weeks about just, I don't know, just giving me a chance to talk in those languages a little bit more and get some feedback on them. But yeah,